Hello everyone and welcome back to Expletives Included for the 9th day of Vlogmas. And today I'm going to be talking on music, and I'm going to be explaining that this cold, which is not shifting, has shifted from my neck, from my throat to my nose. So if I sound nasally and bunged up, then that's the reason why. It's getting rather frustrating now. And music I find is a bit different to kind of my other media tastes, because it's kind of it's a medium that always just kind of keeps changing. So with like video games, there's always been like this kind of set kind of thing that I like. I mean, I like all video games, most video games, but it's always kind of the same things, and the same with films. I like lots of different types of films, but it's always kind of the same things, and I get like the same response. Whereas music, it is kind of always changing, and I know like growing up I liked... Well, actually I didn't really like music during kind of childhood. I can't remember how old I was when I finally kind of clicked and got into music. Couldn't tell you. But I always kind of go through go through phases, so where I only listen to like a certain number of things, or I'll kind of be really into something and listen to it over and over again, and then kind of just not be into it very much. And I have like what I consider a very broad taste in music, and I think that's kind of true for most people. Lots of people I know do kind of like say, oh yeah, I've got like a very eclectic mix of music tastes, or I like a large variety of things, as if it's something which is kind of unusual. As if it's kind of unusual to like rock and R&B and dance and death metal. I'm not saying I do, I'm not particularly fond of dance or R&B, but there are lots of people who just kind of like music genres that seem like they would be juxtaposed. And I don't really think that's as weird as it's kind of made out to be. I remember, I think it was like an article that was shared from a metal magazine, like saying that fans of kind of death metal, heavy metal, black metal, I'm not sure, but kind of that kind of genre, that kind of ilk, are more likely to be, like the younger generations, they're more likely to be interested in classical music than other musical peers. And again, it's like they're two very different genres of music, but I don't really it's not something that I would have assumed, but hearing about it, I don't find it that surprising. I suppose partially because I do quite enjoy classical music, and there are times when I do just kind of really want to put on some... I can never remember. Another thing is, I've always been really bad with genres of music. So I want to say that it's either listening to black metal or death metal, or I think I like Emperor, and I can't remember what genre they are. I remember someone kind of explained it really, really well, in that one of them sounds like it's being sung by the Cookie Monster, and the other sounds like it's being sung by one of the Nazgul. I like the variety that's sung by the Nazgul, and maybe I just really like that analogy because Emperor do actually have some Lord of the Rings inspired music, so that's quite fun as well. And I find that if you do go into kind of music, then it's always going to be like metal and stuff like that is influenced by fantasy and mythology and stuff like that, and that's kind of like one of the big kind of genres that I'm into. I want to say power metal. I know that what are they called? This is just going to be a video of me going what's that band called? Glory Hammer, who have recently brought out a new CD, something like it's their space-themed one. It's Apocalypse 2001 or 1991, Space Odyssey, I don't know. I think... Is their first CD called The Unicorn Invasion of Dundee? Or Tales from the Kingdom of Fife? Tales from the Kingdom of Fife, let's go with that one. That's what the CD is actually called. That just kind of melodic sound with like metal instruments and metal kind of leaning. That's kind of like a genre that I'm really into, and I want to kind of lump in with that genre as well. Things like Rhapsody and Powerwolf and other bands didn't go but damn it. Things like that. So things like Rhapsody, Lucari Turil, who I think actually might have been involved with Rhapsody at some point. Glory Hammer, those kind of. Ooh, and Van Canto is also, I would say, in that genre. They're kind of German a cappella band as well. Again, like the common theme, it's very fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and even when it does, it's still kind of got that levity to it that's just makes it just enjoyable to listen to, and that's just always kind of really great. And again, going back to things that don't take themselves too seriously, Tenacious D. Was Tenacious D, their first album, Tenacious D, was the first CD I ever owned. I'm quite proud of that because I may have talked about it on Expletives Included before. Lots of people have very embarrassing first films, first anime, first CD. So I think I did quite well for my first CD, having a Tenacious D's first album, which I would say is their best album. I think they did have an EP, Jesus Ranch. Jesus Ranch is one of my favourite songs of theirs. But I think after kind of their first like proper studio album, things just kind of went downhill for the D. I did quite like the film, and I did quite like the Pick of Destiny CD that came with it. But Rise of the Phoenix, I've listened to once. You might say that I have to listen to it again to kind of get into it, but yeah, I've listened to the first CD so many times that the CD actually starts jumping now. That doesn't happen. I take good care of like all of my CDs. I don't think I've got anything that's any games, any CDs that are kind of like scratched or just kind of played beyond being playable, apart from Tenacious D. And so that's kind of like another early influence of things that are kind of comedy, heavy kind of rock music, and just really great. Sticking on with rock music, there's a subgenre, I believe, although I think it might be classed as a genre of itself, the new wave of British heavy metal, which encompasses your Iron Maiden, your Judas Priest, your Girl School, your Motorhead, just massive powerhouses like those bands that, again, it's just hard to get tired of. They're just so awesome. I don't know which to go into. Angel Witch, I think, is another new wave of British heavy metal. I think Saxon was as well. I know, like when I was growing up, like probably my favourite, before I kind of knew what the new wave of British heavy metal was, my favourite was probably, as like a full band, Iron Maiden, because I'd kind of been able to listen to more of their stuff. But I had like two or three compilations that had Girl School Race with the Devil, and that was just one of my favourite songs. And it's, I don't know, I was just going to be like, it's a crime that they weren't more popular and that I can't find more of their stuff. But I don't know, that's being far too emotional about music, which it just doesn't happen. I don't know. It's disappointing. That's the correct word. It's very disappointing that they didn't get the commercial success that I think they deserved. But I think that's true for a lot of stuff. That's true for a lot of bands. Like, again, back to kind of like the folk. There's kind of Celtic themed metal, kind of the folk metal. Again, like another thing that I'm very big into, like very close ties to Norse metal as well. So stuff like Grand Magus. Grand Magus is probably my favourite of that genre, but also Tyr is great. There are a few others that I can't think of, and Darkest Era. Darkest Era are great. They are kind of like one of my favourite bands, and it's really disappointing. They've recently kind of brought out a new, it wasn't a CD, it was an EP, and I don't have any record players to play them on, which is really disappointing. I could buy it, and then you get like the MP3 download as well. And I am very tempted because it would be like really cool to have an EP. I do have like a few vinyl, but I don't know, I kind of bought them a while ago, and the idea was that I would eventually get around to buying a vinyl player. But I haven't yet. So I might, I don't know. And also they kind of don't really go on tour. Like I know next year they've got one place that they're going to, and that's in New York, and that is like the complete other side of the country. It's 3 to 4 hours on the train. It might actually be the same by car as well, but I don't drive yet, so I'm damned. And that's just like one gig that they've got planned so far next year, and they're opening for Tyr. But yeah, they're an amazing band, but they just don't like have the traction that I think that they should. They're doing such great work. So that's kind of like folk metal, that's like heavy metal, that's black metal, there's new wave of British heavy metal, it's comedy metal by Tenacious D. I've said that I'm interested in classical, and then I suppose we go into like the more eclectic things, the things that where you just kind of like pick and choose from genres. I'm not sure what I would describe Blue Oyster Cult as, but I love their CD. Well, I love Don't Fear the Reaper again. That is like on every compilation CD ever. But their CD, I think it was the one that was released after Cultosaurus Erectus. It's Fire of Unknown Origin. That's the hardest CD to remember, because I always kind of go through like the songs that I know that are on the CD and think, is that the title? Is that the title? So I'm just kind of trying to think of the CD. I can picture the image like perfectly, but I just kind of think Fire of Unknown Origin, which was the actual title of the CD. Yes. Burning for You, which is the best song on that CD. Veteran of the 1,000-Year Psychic Wars, possibly. And then there's Soul Survivor. Again, these are all great songs, and I can't remember, but I think there's possibly some inspiration from Michael Moorcock novels. I'm not sure. I know that I'm fairly confident that Hawkwind, another great band, has lots of influence from Michael Moorcock, who's I've embarrassingly only read one book of, but it's again great stuff. And this is Hawkwind, great music. Blue Oyster Cult, great music. I'm not sure what genre that falls into. As I said, I'm terrible with that stuff. I've probably said it before, and I'll probably say it again. And then Taylor Swift, embarrassingly, yes, I'm a big fan of Taylor Swift. Recently, because I kind of gone away from buying CDs, she's the only person who I kind of actually buy CDs of anymore. So I think I've only got 3 of her CDs, so about half of her discography. Other things. Again, I'm a big fan of Dan Avidan of NSP, but I also really love Skyhill, which is... It's kind of like an old project that didn't turn out, but then with NSP he kind of has, which is a comedy band, he has kind of gained a lot of traction and a big following, and he has recently released a track with like Skyhill, and it's more serious, and it's kind of, again, it's more melodic, it's kind of more ambient, I'm bad at kind of describing music, it's not really one of my passions. I always kind of like think that if you want to kind of hear someone just kind of go on about something that they're passionate about, and just people who are like really eloquent in just how much they love something, then always find someone who's into music, because they can just ramble on incessantly. And unlike me, they will actually kind of go into things and explain things and talk about like the depth and like why things are great, rather than just kind of stating that they are. Anything else that bears noting? At the moment, I'm just listening to kind of Bad Religion, rather exclusively. It's just kind of angry. I do kind of like listening to angry songs now and then, so stuff like Bad Religion, and I can't think like I remember like the last time I was in one of these moods where that was like the kind of music that I wanted to listen to. There was a couple of bands that I just kind of listened to over and over again. I think, is it Rage Against the Machine? Rage Against the Machine, who did Renegades of Funk, which wasn't one of their angry songs, it's just like one of my favourite ones. And then Rise Against also. Anything else? I had something in my head that I wanted to say when I was talking about Rage Against the Machine. But it's gone, and I've rambled on for long enough. So, again, that's more insight that no one asked for about my taste in the world of music. That's essentially, I think that's mostly what I'm into. It's going to bother me now that I can't think of that thing that I had in my head. But 9th day of Vlogmas, we'll see you again tomorrow for whatever Kier's rambling about, and then we'll be rambling on for the next 16 days. Bye.